because we're going to be not going to jump in terms of what it is we're talking about, but we're going to jump in terms of pulling out the resources. And we'll start today, and again, we'll finish this over the course of 2 or 3 teachings. But the title of the message is Make Us One. Make us one. Somebody say, make us one. Make us one. So there is something that we get to the end and recognize as a benefit, and that's in the power of this oneness and being one with the Most High, being one as his people, being reconnected with his land, being reconnected with his promises, all of that. We recognize that. But this is a process. And we know that at the beginning, if we go all the way back to Genesis, that Yahweh created everything in perfect balance. He created everything in perfect harmony. He created everything to work together. And he charged man to be in charge, right? He gave dominion. He gave dominion. And he says, in this, you are to basically run this establishment. This is yours to work. It's yours to run. We know what happened. Man fell. Man fell. One of the commands that was given was that man was to work the garden and to guard the garden. But in that process, what happened? Hasatan, the serpent, was allowed into the garden. So therein started the problem. The guarding. We were supposed to be guarding, right? And so something took place. There became a series of separations. There became a series of divisions. And so now what we see, everything that we see is a result. Siri, I'm not even talking to you. Siri be trying to get in on the message, man. Like serious. Let me just turn Siri down. Stop listening to me. But there came an issue because now you have all of these splinters. Things that worked together, things that worked in harmony, now are divided. And so now what we have is a world that is no longer in perfect balance. A world that is no longer in perfect balance. You know, I don't know this to absolutely be true, but I'm imagining that there was probably not even these extremes of weather that we see. Why is it that one part of the year has to be extremely hot and the other part of the year has to be extremely cold? One part of the world has to be extremely hot. The other part of the world has to be extremely cold. These extremes, why? Why? If things were in balance. It didn't even have to rain until Noah's time. Think about that. Think about that. There was no need, right? And so let's begin now. Again, we're talking about make us one. Make us one. Make us one. So Israel was never created to be divided. Israel was never created to be separated from not just each other, but from Israel's Elohim and Israel's land. But what does the scripture say? I call this day to witness against you. What's called? The heavens and the earth. I call this day, the heavens and the earth, to witness against you. And what does he say happens when we find ourselves, when we found ourselves in sin? The land witnessed against us and spewed us out. There came a division. There came a separation. All right? So what we're going to look at is the process of being one, but we need to understand the division. That's the first thing we need to understand. Now, the first place I want to start is in Genesis. The first place I want to start is in Genesis. I want to start in chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3. Because this is going to show us from the beginning. All right? So we're not going to read everything. We're just going to kind of hit on a few things. So first thing I want to take a look at is who we're dealing with here is the Nahash, right? The Nahash, or that serpent. And this Nahash, who's the Nahash speaking to? Who's the Nahash talking with? Verse 2 says, and the woman said to the Nahash. So it was the woman that was dealing with the Nahash. All right? And verse 4 says, and the Nahash said to the woman. So the woman is speaking to the Nahash. Nahash is speaking to the woman. Right? And then by the time you get down to verse 7, it says, then the eyes of both of them. Right? Because what happened in verse 6? She gave to her husband who was with her. She ate, and she gave to her husband who was with her. He was with her. But who was the Nahash speaking with? Her. Did he address the Nahash? No. He did not. And then when the Most High began to question them, in verse 12, what does the man say? And the man said, the woman who you gave me to be with me, she gave me of the tree and I ate. And then Elohim said to the woman, why have you done this? And the woman said, well, the Nahash deceived me and I ate. And so now what do you have? Division. The first division came right there where the enemy came between the husband and the wife. Came between the man and the woman and caused the separation. All right? First place that division takes place. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run through some history, some history of Israel, of our people. Some of this I'm not going to go into super depth and detail because you know well of, for instance, the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You understand that Abraham and Sarah had a son. You understand that Isaac was that son. You understand that the promise was made to come through Isaac, right? And then Isaac had twin sons, Esau and Jacob. We understand that Jacob was the son of promise. He was the one who it was said that it would be from him. His lineage would be who would carry this blessing that was made way back to Abraham. And then we know from there, how many sons did Jacob have? 12 sons, right? And these 12 sons is now who we call the patriarchs, or the 12 patriarchs. And these are the children, the sons of Israel, whom now everything is divided, and now going forward is used with these 12 sons, right? These 12 sons are used. So indulge me real quick. Let's go down through these 12 sons. Let's name them. They don't have to be in order. We're going to get to 12. Here's what we're going to do. Name the 12 birth sons, and then we'll name the 2 that were adopted in for Joseph. All right? All right, so y'all ready? All right, so let's name them. Somebody, Joseph. I got Joseph. I got Levi. I got Zebulun. I got Dan. I got Issachar. I got Naphtali, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Simeon. We got one sitting. Oh, no, we said Yehuda, right. Judah, Benjamin, Issachar. I think we said Issachar. Somebody said Levi. I think that was all 12 because I ran out of hands and I said, boom, boom. Huh? Manasseh. That's who was missing. Manasseh Shay. Oh, we did say that. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, that was the 12. I think we hit the 12. And now, who was the? Maybe we should have wrote them down and we could have kept track of if we hit them all. But I'm pretty sure we hit them all. Yes, and they are back there. I'm pretty sure we hit them all. Let me just look. We hit them all. We hit them all. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Yehuda, Zebulun, Issachar, Dan, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Yosef, Benjamin. And that's actually all of them in order of their birth. All right. Now, there were two that took the place, and not necessarily took the place, but depending on what's going on, there are two that are named in place, all right, for two others. One being Levi, the other being Joseph, all right? One being Levi, the other being Joseph, and especially when we're talking about land inheritance, because Levi was not given land inheritance, okay? So that's one down. So that puts us at 11. Then Joseph, in his place, his two sons were adopted. His two sons were adopted by his father as his. And he says, you shall put my name. They will be called by my name. In other words, I have adopted your sons and they will inherit with my sons as they are. And so they become right in the same generational line for inheritance. And what's the name of those two sons? Ephraim and Manasseh, right? And so now you have back to 12 because Joseph, you count two in his place. Take him out, count two, that's 13. Then take out Levi, that's back to 12. So it's always centered around 12, all right? And so we know that when they went into Egypt, that they were 70 beings, right? Went into Egypt. They went through 210 years, I think, if I'm remembering it correctly, either 210 or 220, I can't remember. But they went through that period of time that they were there, right? And while they were there, they flourished, they expanded, they grew. They became a great multitude, so great that even the ruler of that land was like, wait, these people getting be too big. They're going to get so big and so powerful and strong that when our enemies come against us, they're going to side with them. And so now there became a plot against them. Long story short, they get kicked out there in the wilderness, and then they now are given the opportunity after 40 years to go into their own land. All right? They are going into their own land, Who takes them into their own land? Who takes them into Joshua? Joshua takes them into their own land, or Yehoshua. So now, this is where we are. So the first thing I want to do is look at this kingdom being divided. So let's go to 1 Kings. 1 Kings, we're going to start at chapter 11, kind of work our way through. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1 through 3, just to kind of give us some context. Because the important thing is that in the time that they were given this promise and they were given this covenant and they went into relationship in Exodus chapter 20, they said in 19, all that you say we will do. They accepted a contract. They went into an agreement with the Most High. And Yahweh says, so as long as you do what I say do, then the land will give to you. It will bring forth, and you will flourish, and you will enjoy the fruit of the land. But if you do not do what I've told you to do, if you do not abide by this covenant, if you do what is not right in the eyes of the Most High, then this land is going to spew you out. This land is going to spew you out. So let's take a look first at 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1 through 3. And it says, and sovereign Shlomo, or Solomon, loved many foreign women, in addition to the daughter of Pharaoh. And this is some of the types of women he had fallen in love with: Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Zidonian, and Hittite women. He liked all types of women's, right? Women's. Verse 2 says, from the nations of whom Yahweh had said to the children of Israel, you do not go into them, and they do not go into you, for they shall certainly do what? Turn away your hearts after their mighty ones. But yet, what did Shlomo do? Shlomo clung to these in love. Verse 3 says, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. And what happened? His wives turned away his heart. Turned away his heart. Now, do y'all remember when Joshua was going into the land and he says, whom do you serve? Is it the God of the Amorites and the Hittites and so on and so forth, the land where you now dwell? Is that the gods that you serve? But as for me and my house, what did he say? We will serve the Most High Yah. And so here, Yahweh gave a warning. He gave a warning way back then. He says, if you serve these other gods, there's going to be problems. If you deal with these other people, they're going to get you to serve the other gods. So don't deal with the other people. You don't go into them. Don't take their wives. Don't take their daughters to be your wives. Don't give your daughters to them. Y'all remember what happened with Balak and Balaam? What was that whole thing? Balak and Balaam. So Balak goes to Balaam and says, hey, curse these people. And Balaam goes and he says, I can't say nothing other than what Yahweh tells me to say. So the things that's coming out my mouth is good. It's blessings. It's prophecy, actually. But then what happens? He says, but let me tell you something. Get your women to put on this attire. Go stand in front of their men and let them walk right by them. And eventually what's going to happen is you give your daughters to marry them. They give their daughters to marry you. And you'll have what you need. You'll have what you need. And that's exactly what happened. That's what happened then. Now, we're hundreds of years later. And this is where we're at. Shlomo is now taken over after his father. Who was his father? King David, right? David took over after who? Saul, right? So Shaul was the first king. So you went from Shaul, you went to David, and then you go to Shlomo. 3 kings. Y'all remember why they even had a king to begin with? He says, yo, I am your king. He says, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me. When they asked for a king, they said, we want a king like all the other nations. That's where they begin to fail. That's where we begin to fall. We want a king like all the other nations. The very meaning of being set apart is that you don't look like other people. And so in that, it began a process. And here we see with Shlomo, 3 kings in, many judges, 3 kings in. This is where we're at. All right? All right, so let's go down a little bit further. Let's go down to verse 29. Still in 1 Kings chapter 11. Still in 1 Kings. All right, and it says, and this is to give us some context as to what's going to be happening in the next chapter that we're going to go through. And it says, and it came to be at that time that Yaroboam went out of Jerusalem, that the prophet Ahiah, the Shilonite, met him on the way, and he was wearing a new garment, and the two were alone in the field. All right? And just to make sure that you know, because the names might ring a bigger bell if you hear it, what you're used to hearing is Jeroboam. So this is Jeroboam, or in Hebrew would be Yaroboam. Yaroboam probably is a better way of saying it. Yaroboam. So this Yaroboam is what we're used to hearing Jeroboam. Okay? All right, so verse 30. And Ahiah took hold of the new garment that was on him and tore it into 12 pieces. What did we establish? What's that 12? We talked about the 12 tribes of Israel, right? And so this is important. Verse 31. And said to Jeroboam, take yourself 10 pieces. Take for yourself 10 pieces, for thus said Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. See, I am tearing the reign out of the hand of Shlomo, and shall give 10 tribes to you. So this is what he did. He went to Yaroboam, and he declared right there that based on what Shlomo has done, what did Shlomo do? What did we establish earlier? What happened there? He got 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and allowed them to turn his heart away from the Most High. Because you cannot serve Elohim and a false Elohim. You can't serve the creator of the heavens and the earth and these other gods too. You either serve the one and hate the other, or you hate the one and serve the other. One of the two things is going to happen. And so Shlomo, even though this man, remember, this is the same one that was gifted in wisdom. Gifted. And he is now allowed himself to be turned. And as a result of him being turned, it's the beginning of a division. It's 12 tribes, right? How many pieces did he tell him to take for himself? 10. That's less than 12. That's less than 12. So now there is a division that is happening. So again, reading from verse 31. Take for yourself 10 pieces, for thus said Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. See, I am tearing the reign out of the hand of Shlomo, and shall give 10 tribes to you. But he shall have 1 tribe for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. Because they, let me see, what did I say? 30, we're going to stop at 35. Because they have forsaken me and bowed themselves to Asheroth, the mighty one of the Zidonians. to Chemosh, the mighty ones of Moab, and to Milcom, the mighty ones of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do what is right in my eyes, and my laws, and my right rulings, as did his father David. What do you notice with the gods that they as a people are serving? What do you notice? Go back to verse 1, verse 2, verse 3. It's the wives of the king. What were they? They were Ammonites. They were Moabites. They were the Zidonians, right? These are the same ones that we see are now. It's not just Shlomo, but the people have been turned away from guarding the right rulings of the Most High. They're not walking in his ways. They're walking in the ways of the Asheroth, the gods of the Sidonians, and the Chemosh, the gods of the Moabites, and the Milcom, the gods of the Ammonites. All of these other gods. And he probably just stopped there, and I'm sure it's all the other ones as well. So verse 34, but I do not take all the reign out of his hand, because I have made him ruler all the days of his life for the sake of my servant David, whom I chose because he guarded my commands and my laws. And I shall take the reign out of his son's hand and give it to you, the 10 tribes. And so he was going to wait. He waited until he died. Waited until Shlomo died. And so now let's look at this split that takes place. Let's go down to chapter 12. Let's go down to chapter 12. And we're going to look, let's start at verse 4. And to give you a little bit of, kind of catch us up a little bit. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just start at I'm gonna start at 1, so we can come down, and I'll just let it explain itself. And Rehoboam, so you have Rehoboam and you have Jeroboam, right? These are two different people. Again, what we would normally hear is Jeroboam and Rehoboam. All right, Jeroboam and Rehoboam is what you're used to hearing. All right, so Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone to Shechem to set him up to reign. So now this is post-mortem Shlomo. So Shlomo has died. Shlomo has died. And, and it came to be when Yaroboam, son of Nebat, heard this, he was still in Mitzrayim, for he had fled from the presence of sovereign Shlomo, and he had been dwelling in Mitzrayim because Shlomo was looking to actually kill him. And so you have here the son of Nebat. He is from the northern tribes. That's important to note, okay? Yaroboam is from the northern tribes. He is Ephrathite, which then goes back to Ephraim. He is an Ephraimite, okay? And so he is from the northern tribes. And verse 3 says that they sent and called him, and Yaroboam and all the assembly of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam, saying, all right, so now you have, remember, how many tribes was ripped away and given on those pieces? 10. Those were the 10 that were in the northern part. That's why they are now under the rule of Jeroboam, because he is a northern king now. He is now the king over those 10 tribes that are in the north. Those 10 tribes that are in the north. Then you have 2 tribes that are in the south, all right? And so process of elimination, there's 12 together, so 10 are in the south. Those 2 tribes that are in the south is the tribe of Yehuda and the tribe of Benjamin. Okay? The tribe of Yehuda and the tribe of Benjamin. And then there is Levi scattered throughout. So, but for the sake of land inheritance, remember we don't count Levi, right? All right, so let's go back into it. Note that they are speaking on behalf of their people. All right, that's important to note. So you have Yaroboam and all of the assembly of Israel came to speak to Rehoboam, right? Understand and note this as well. The northern tribes, those 10 tribes, are often referred to as Israel, right? Sometimes they're referred to as Joseph. Sometimes they're referred to Israel. Sometimes they're referred to as Ephraim, okay? Now, verse 4. Here we go. This is now a people that was ruled under one king. These people were ruled under one king. Okay? One king. But this is what's happening now. It says, your father made our yoke hard, and now lighten the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke, which he put on us. Then we serve you. So this is the southern tribe that is putting on the northern tribe more than what they feel they can bear. Because the center, the capital, the place where the government was taking place was in Jerusalem. That was in the southern tribe. All right, so this is Rehoboam, who is in control of the head of state, per se. He is the one that's in charge of the southern tribes. Y'all with me? He's in charge of the southern tribes. Verse 5. And he said to them, go away for 3 days, then come back to me. And the people went. So this is Rehoboam saying to Yaroboam, go away, you and your people, you represent the northern tribes, go away for 3 days, let me think about it. Let me think about it, all right? And so this is what happens, result of that time. And so verse 6, then sovereign Rehoboam consulted the elders who stood before his father Shlomo while he still lived, and he said, what do you advise me to answer these people? So he stood before those same people who advised his father and said, hey, what should I do? And they spoke to him, saying, if you are a servant to these people today and shall serve them and shall answer them and speak good words to them, then they shall be your servants all the days. In other words, if you show yourself as a servant, they will be committed and loyal to you in return, right? Yeah, but look what he said. Man, I don't really like that answer. So here's a case where he sought wise counsel, got the wise counsel, but didn't like the wisdom in the counsel. So verse 8 says, but he ignored the advice of the elders and consulted the young men who had grown up with him, who stood before him. So now he like, man, let me ask my boys because them old people tripping. Let me ask my boys, the ones that's ready to go, the ones that got their stuff ready, packed, and ready to fight somebody right now. So here we go. Verse 9. And he said to them, what advice do you give? How should we answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, lighten the yoke which your father has put on us? This was their response. And the young men who had grown up with him spoke to him, saying, say this to this people who have spoken to you, saying, your father made our yoke heavy, but you make it lighter on us. Say this to them. My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. In other words, if you thought he was bad, wait till you see what I got for you. Verse 11 says, and now my father laid a heavy yoke on you, but I add to your yoke. My father flogged you with whips, but I flog you with scourges. So Yeroboam and the people came to Rehoboam the third day. So this is when they went away and they came back. They said, okay, now what you got for us? What you got for us? Verse 13 says, but the sovereign answered the people harshly and ignored the advice which the elders had given him. And he spoke to them according to the advice of the young men, saying, my father made your yoke heavy, but I add to your yoke. My father flogged you with whips, but I flog you with scourges. So the sovereign did not listen to the people, for the turn of events was from Yahweh in order to establish his word, which Yahweh had spoken to Ahiah, Jeshilonite, to Yeroboam, son of Nebat. And so now here we go. Verse 16. And all Israel saw that the sovereign did not listen to them. When it says all Israel, who is it speaking of? The northern tribes, those 10 tribes. Those 10 tribes. And it says, then the people answered the sovereign, saying, what portion do we have in David? And there is no inheritance in the son of Yeshai. To your mighty ones, O Israel. Now see to your own house, O David. So Israel went to their tents. They went to their own tents. Now, when it's talking about them going to their own tents, now they are separating. That's what they're saying, because they already lived in their own tents. That's not really the point. It's saying, now we divide. We are no longer with you. We're no longer a part of you. Verse 17. But as for the children of Israel who dwelt in the cities of Yehudah, Rehoboam reigned over them. And when sovereign Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the compulsory labor, all Israel stoned him with stones, and he died. And sovereign Rehoboam hastily mounted his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. Thus Israel revolted against the house of David to this day. Division. Division. Where did the division start in the garden? Disobedience. Where did the division start? Right here. Disobedience. Same thing. Same thing, same result. Same thing, same result. Disobedience breeds division. There is no other outcome, because Yahweh said, don't entertain them. Don't get involved with their women. Don't get involved with their gods. Don't get involved with their processes. He says, don't even ask how they do what it is that they do. Don't inquire how it is they serve their gods. Why did he say that? You don't even need to know, because you don't need to start considering if you want to use that to serve me. And what do we see people doing today? So note to self, exactly. So note to self, and we're going to stop here, that we've been reading through Jeremiah. And if you go right there to 23rd chapter, just to give you just a little bit, Yahweh says right there, woe to the shepherds who scatter the flock. Woe to the shepherds who scatter the flock. All in Jeremiah leading up. Jeremiah is speaking to the southern tribes. But we're going to hit first, before we get there, we're going to hit the northern tribes and what happens with them. And so we're going to stop here, and we'll pick up on next time. I'll give you just one a couple things here. One is to understand when there was this divide. Now you have, number one, a government, a separate governing body between Rehoboam and Jeroboam, or Yeroboam and Rehoboam. And I want to take a look at this real quick. I'm hitting the wrong thing. And then we'll close it out. So this gives us this timeline. This is a timeline. And as you can see, right on this end here, Shlomo was the last king to rule over both the northern and the southern tribes. So as you can see, right out the gate, war. He sent somebody to go, this person is in charge of our compulsory labor for the government. This person. And they go down to see what's going on, or up, I guess in this case. They go up to see what's going on. And what did they do? They stoned them. They declared war right there. So this separation came into play. And you ended up with the northern kingdom ruled by one king and the southern kingdom ruled by somebody else. Totally different. All right, so we'll stop there, and we'll pick up on the next teaching. We'll pick up and we'll begin to go through the process of, we've gone through what caused the separation. At the end of the day, what caused it? Disobedience. Shlomo turned away. He turned away false gods, false practice, false worship. That's where it began. That was the beginning of the end. Hallelujah. So we're going to stop there, and we will pick it back up on next time. Praise Yah. Praise Yah.